You're listening to Big World Network.
Sprint Mazing, Episode 1, written and read by Raelka Grimmer. I hit the ground with a thud. Mud splashed all over my face and clothes. I pushed myself up off the ground and back to my feet, ignoring the numbness spreading through my legs. I swiped the mud from my eyes and tried to climb over the wall again. Rain poured down, making the solid brick slippery and hard to get over. After grabbing fruitlessly at the wall, trying to find a sturdy place to grip onto, I managed to clamber over and jump down to the other side. 20 points. I hit the ground running. As I ran, trying to navigate my way through the pouring rain, I glanced at my armband. The time I'd spent on the wall had cost me. I was already 50 points behind. Drat! I muttered to myself, wiping excess mud from my bike shorts so the extra weight wouldn't slow me down. I had 10 minutes left and I was determined not to waste a second. Up ahead, I saw a mountain of black tyres stacked one on top of the other. I sprinted towards them and, just before I reached the stack, I jumped and landed a quarter of the way up the pile. I clung to the black rubber and clawed my way to the top. As I was about to start my descent, my feet slipped and I fell through a tyre. My arms caught the lip of the rubber and stopped me from falling all the way through. I was left dangling above the ground below. The rain continued to hammer down. I kicked my legs around beneath me, trying to find the leverage to propel myself back up through the tyre. It was no use. I had nothing to grip onto, and with the rain drenching everything in sight, there was no way I'd be able to get back on top of the tyre stack. So I did the only practical thing I could think of. I released my grip on the tyre and dropped to the ground below. I ran beneath the tyre mountain to the edge of the stack and clambered through a tyre, back out into the open in the torrential rain. A fork split the path ahead of me and I had to choose left or right. The right fork was stacked with obstacles, and surely the way to go if I wanted the most points. The left fork was all clear. I chose the left. Although I desperately needed points, time was running out and I couldn't afford to return late and cop the penalty. That would kill any chance I had of winning. I flew down the straight, took a sharp left followed by a sharp right, and dived into the pool. The water froze me to my core and, for a second, I was unable to move, but my armband started beeping like crazy, one beep for each second that passed, and I realized I had less than 1 minute left. I kicked my legs and reached out to swipe any flags I could see beneath the surface as I swam freestyle across the pool, hauling myself out at the other end as my watch ticked over to the 30-minute mark. I stood on the deck, panting and shivering. The scoreboard read 325 to 300. I was losing, but my opponent wasn't back yet, so I still had a chance of winning. For every minute competitors return late, they lose 20 points. I wasn't sure how you were going to get out of that one. My coach, Jake, appeared next to me on the deck. First time I've seen a maneuver like that, but hey, whatever works. I had it covered. I grabbed my towel from the railing at the back of the decking and pulled it around me. It was a hot day, but the combination of the mud, freezing water, and humid rain made an altogether cold, miserable combination. After a couple more minutes, I saw a figure running towards the pool. She dived in, swam across in less than a minute, and climbed out onto the decking, dripping with water. The siren sounded, signalling the end of the race. She'd obviously taken the route with the obstacles. The final score was 280 to 300, my way. I jogged to the end of the decking and shook the girl's hand. "Good race," I said. She reluctantly took my hand. "You too. Nice comeback." Her coach hurried over to us. His face was set in a stony cold expression. He ushered my opponent away from me and led her toward the change rooms, firing words into her ear. I shivered. "I'm going to wash this mud off," I said to Jake. "Okay, but be quick. Jake replied. "There's someone who wants to meet you." I shot Jake a puzzled look, but he wouldn't say another word. I'm Madison. Madison Harper, 14, and I'm a sprint mazer. Well, I want to be a sprint mazer. A pro, I mean. I want to race on the pro circuit and compete at the World Championships. And I want to win. Sprint mazing is pretty much what it sounds like. Two people race against each other to be the first to navigate through a maze. To gain points, you have to negotiate obstacles or dive for flags at the bottom of the pool, which always lies before the finish line. I only started racing 4 years ago, but I love it, both the physical and mental side, although the mental side is often disastrous for me. My mind is prone to wandering in the middle of a race. At the crucial moments, I'm often thinking about a school assignment or what I'm going to eat after the race or my plans for the rest of the day. It's worse in an endurance race. They last for 3 hours and the mazes are the most complicated to navigate. The obstacles are more difficult to complete, too. Despite my terrible concentration, endurances are my favourite races. By the end, I am so exhausted I can hardly bring myself to walk to the change rooms, but there's no better feeling in the world than winning an endurance. And no worse feeling than losing one. We also have mid-sprints, which I find really awkward to race. They last for an hour and a half, and, for me, it's neither long enough nor short enough. There is a very fine line between navigating through the maze within the time limit and completing enough obstacles to earn enough points to win. The race I just won is a quick sprint and only 30 minutes long. There are more obstacles in quick sprints, but the maze itself is fairly straightforward. Most paths will lead to the finish. Sprint mazing is a sport which really messes with your head. At least, it messes with my head, as I try to figure out the path through the maze and complete obstacles and worry about what my opponent is up to. Still, I wouldn't have it any other way. Bring it on, I say. The warm water in the shower soothed my burning muscles. I could have stayed in there forever, but I had other things to do, most notably going to the movies with my best friend Zoe that night. She'd come along to watch my race that day. I was also curious to find out who wanted to meet me. I dried off and threw the bike shorts, sports bra and aquasprint shoes I'd raced in into a crumpled plastic bag. I stashed the bag at the bottom of my backpack and pulled on shorts, a t-shirt and thongs before heading for the stadium foyer to see who could possibly be waiting for me. I spotted Jake straight away. It's hard not to, with his gangly frame and bleached blonde hair. He's 19 and looks like an overgrown kid. He stood in a corner, talking to a short woman whom he towered over. I approached them, my thongs flapping loudly against the synthetic floor. The woman looked up and smiled at me. "Madison, I'd like you to meet Penelope Lyons," Jake said. I took the hand Penelope proffered and shook it, trying to figure out if I recognized the name or not. I didn't think so. "Nice to meet you," I said, hoping my confusion didn't show on my face. "I'm so pleased to finally meet you," Penelope said. "That was a wonderful race." "Thanks. What made you decide to go beneath the tire mountain rather than climb over it?" I fell," I admitted. I wasn't sure if I should be owning up to that or not. I didn't really have a choice. Penelope smiled. "Well, please excuse me, but I must be going. Again, lovely to meet you." Penelope shook my hand, then Jake's, and left us standing in the corner. "Madison," Jake said as she walked away. "You know who that was, right?" "No," I said. "Should I?" "Penelope Lyons. She's a scout for Norburry Hills Academy." I stared at Jake, unable to speak. My tongue stuck to the roof of my mouth. I shook it free and whispered, "Please tell me you're joking." Jake shrugged. "Sorry." Norburry Hills Academy is the only sprint mazing specialist school in Australia. It is the one surefire way of getting onto the pro circuit. I'd wanted to go to Norburry Hills ever since I ran my first race 4 years ago. "Why did she have to see this race?" I groaned. Jake rolled his eyes. "Stop being so dramatic. She sounded impressed." I shook my head. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw my 11-year-old twin brothers, Jeff and Aiden, my best friend Zoe, and my parents making their way towards us. "Good one, Maddie!" Dad boomed once he thought he was in earshot. In reality, he was still a little too far away, and I'm pretty sure the whole stadium heard. "Great race. When you fell off that wall, I thought this one was over, but you picked yourself up and just kept on going, and to come back and win it! Definitely her father's daughter, this one." I looked at Mum. She didn't acknowledge my exasperation. "Well raced, honey. Jake, how are you?" "You should have lost," Jeff said. "You were lucky." "I reckon," Aiden agreed. "You only win if someone else stuffs up. You two can walk home," I snapped at the twins. I looked at Zoe and rolled my eyes. She gave me a faint smile, but she doesn't have any brothers or sisters, so she doesn't really get it. Dad was still talking to Jake. "She's doing fantastically, isn't she just?" "Well, she has learned from the best," Jake said innocently. Dad roared with laughter. I saw Zoe yawn. "I think it's time we were going," I intervened. "I'll see you Monday, Jake." I herded my family and Zoe out of the stadium before Dad could think of anything else embarrassing to say. Zoe was strangely quiet all afternoon. Then again, I was still on a high from meeting Penelope Lyons and lost in fantasies about competing on the pro circuit, so maybe it was me who was acting strange, not Zoe. By the time Dad was driving us to the cinema that night, Zoe seemed her usual self again. We'd had fun listening to music while we chose clothes and got ready, and Zoe was really excited about the movie we were seeing. "What are we going to see again?" I asked Zoe on the way to the cinema. I couldn't quite remember the title. "Honestly," Zoe said, "I can't believe you hadn't heard of it. Love Bites, okay?" "Right," I said. "Sounds good." "Seriously, Madison, you need to stop running through mazes and actually get up to speed on this stuff. I feel like I've hardly seen you this summer. You're always training or racing or something." "I want to win this season," I explained. "I got robbed during the winter season last year. I need a good lead-in. There are more important things than races." "Like teenage guy celebrities, right?" "Precisely." Dad merely chuckled at our banter. He pulled up outside the cinema. We thanked him and jumped out of the car. Inside, the ticket line coiled around the foyer. "I hope it's not sold out," Zoe muttered. "We can always see something else." Zoe shook her head. "We can't." "Hey, Zoe!" Both Zoe and I looked behind us, and my heart dropped as I saw Brittany, Jill, and Sarah heading towards us. They don't like me. The three of them are in our year at school, and I was under the impression they weren't too fond of Zoe either, but they were smiling at her as they joined us in the line. "Do you mind?" Brittany asked. About 10 other people had already tacked onto the queue behind us. "Not at all," Zoe said. "What?" "You seeing Love Bites?" Jill asked. "Of course," Zoe replied. "No kidding," Brittany said. She glanced at me, but didn't utter a word. I stared at the back of the head of the person in front of us as the line moved forward. Of course, when we got to the ticket counter, we all bought our tickets at once, and when we got into the cinema, we all ended up sitting together. As the preview started, I tried to figure out how this had happened. Since when were Zoe and Brittany friends? How had I missed that? Surely I wasn't so busy with racing that I hadn't seen that coming. I mean, I had stepped up my training over the summer, but... Zoe nudged me. "Pay attention," she whispered. "It's starting." Love Bites was an hour and a half of torturous cliches, predictable plot lines, and terrible acting. Zoe, Brittany, Jill, and Sarah laughed like hyenas all the way through. I alternated between trying to figure out what was so funny and trying to determine if they'd notice if I got up and left. I stayed for Zoe's sake. I figured I couldn't leave her without a ride home. The movie finally ended and we gathered our bags and left. Zoe and Brittany chatted away the whole time. I saw Dad's car in the car park. "Come on, Zoe," I said. "Dad's waiting." I half expected her to turn around and tell me that she was going home with Brittany instead, but she just hugged the three girls goodbye, told Brittany she'd see her tomorrow, and followed me to Dad's car. "You're seeing Brittany tomorrow?" I asked as we climbed into the car. "Good evening, girls. Where to?" Dad pretended he was a taxi driver. We ignored him. "Yeah, we're going surfing down south. It's supposed to be really good tomorrow." "Ah," I said. I had a funny feeling an invitation wasn't about to come my way. Yeah, well, I figured you'd be training tomorrow, so I thought we'd agreed to spend the day together. Zoe shrugged. There are still 2 weeks of holidays, we can do that another day. We were quiet on the ride home. Dad sensed enough to keep from cracking horrible jokes. When we arrived at our house, Zoe went straight to the bathroom, brushed her teeth, and put on her pyjamas. Brittany's picking me up at 7, she explained. I didn't bother replying. I simply closed Zoe in my bedroom and went downstairs to watch TV alone. Monday was an absolute scorcher. The forecast was 42 degrees Celsius, but I reckon it was warmer than that. Our air conditioner was struggling to keep up with the heat. I was in my bedroom, lying on my bed, looking at the poster stuck to my ceiling of current sprint mazing world champion, Hayley Harrison. Dad and my brothers were downstairs watching cricket. I'd normally watch with them, but I wasn't in the mood for it that day. I was half hoping Jake would cancel that afternoon's training session, but that wasn't likely. Jake doesn't think severe weather is a legitimate excuse to call things off. It'd take a cyclone before he'd let me off training. I heard the telephone ring downstairs. Someone picked it up, and a moment later Mum called me to the phone. I jumped off the bed and ran for the upstairs extension, thinking it would be Zoe calling to apologise about the weekend. "Hey," I said. "Madison, it's Penelope Lyons. I met you on Saturday after your race?" I gulped. "Hi. We've reviewed the footage of your race, and we'd love to offer you a place at Norburry Hills Academy for the next 4 years, until your high school graduation." I blinked. I was convinced my ears were failing me. "I'm sorry? Are you serious?" "Absolutely. You could do very well if you were at Norburry Hills." "Oh, wow. Thanks. Thank you so much." "Well, you've earned it," Penelope said. "You have the potential. We'll send you the information immediately. It should be there in a couple of days. Once again, congratulations." I hung up the phone and stared at the receiver. I couldn't believe it. I was going to Norburry Hills.
Music by Kevin MacLeod.
You're listening to Big World Network.